Wrong button there. There you go. Okay, before we jump to my part of the presentation, a little bit about the Pulitzer Center. So the Pulitzer Center has these three main pillars. The first one being that we provide game-changing resources, such as the capacity building webinar that you are here today. We also develop methodologies, toolkits. We really advocate for breakthrough journalism, and that means doing journalism that pushes the conversation, is innovative, brings different perspectives, and just adds to the conversation. And another one of our pillars is audience-centered engagement. So the story doesn't end and the work doesn't end at publishing, right? We really want to squeeze the juice and be in constant conversations to the audiences that our reporting serves. And I'm Fernanda Buffa. I am part of the data and research team at the Pulitzer Center, and we work really closely with the journalists, the fellows in our 4 fellowship programs and cohorts in their investigations. And that means assistance in research, analysis, visualizations, but also we like to think of ourselves as thought partners and how, again, they can push their investigations forward, they can brainstorm solutions with us. So yes, that's a little bit about the work that we do. And without further ado, today we're going to be talking about scraping. My part is mainly about no-code scraping. And I really like this graph. I took inspiration from a presentation from Samantha Soon, adapted it a little bit, but basically we're all here because we want answers and data, right? So how can we get it from humans? We can develop relationships, we can ask nicely, and sometimes if they work within a government institution and still are not very willing to give us that information, we can file a request for information in certain countries and get the data that way. And for computers, it works in a very similar analogy. We can read many sources, we can download data, but sometimes it's harder to visualize, it's a bit under the hood, so that's where we can use web scraping. And for my part of the presentation, I want to cover only 2 things because I want you to walk away from this webinar with the confidence that you can start applying these 2 techniques to your reporting today after the webinar is over. So we're going to cover a formula that is called import HTML, and it can be used on Google Sheets. And we're also going to be covering a Chrome extension, which is called Instant Data Scraper. And just a little bit more before we dive into these 2 techniques, I wanted to talk about more about scraping and what it is, right? So we are catching or collecting data off the web. And extractors, they pull data from a single web page, but crawlers, they pull data from multiple web pages. So you know that list that you see 1 to 10, but in the end, you see that there's actually 20 pages. So the crawlers would pull all 200 data points from that. And we're going to be talking a lot about HTML and why is that important? Because HTML is the language designed for web browsers, right? It describes how the web page is structured and it's how it is perceived by us visually. So you can access it by right-clicking and clicking inspect in your web browser. And the main thing to understand about HTML today is that the web pages, they're made of elements. So what are these elements? They are tables, they're images, texts, headers. And we need to really sharpen our eye to be able to look at the elements. Because basically, when we're web scraping, we need to understand what element has the data that we're interested in. Is it a list? Is it a table? So understanding those elements and the data that they contain will help you just drive your scraping efforts. So let's start with our formula. And the import HTML formula, it's important to tell you that it only works with two elements. So it will only work if it's either a table or a list. And it only works on static pages, so not dynamic ones. And Keng will, in his presentation, explain further the difference between that. So I just want you to be aware that it is amazing and it gives us so much good data and information, but it's a bit limited as well. So let's do it live here. I'm just going to stop sharing and then share my screen, my other screen. So we can do it together. So this is a list of countries by forest area, and it's on Wikipedia. And I want to scrape, using the HTML formula function, this second table. I'm not interested in the first one, only in the second one. How would that work? I would get my formula, put it, let's open a new one here. And then I would just put it here. And you see, so in the first thing, I put the URL here. The second, I put that it is a table, and then which is the element, right? And in the third place here, I put it that I was interested in table number 2. So I didn't want table number 1, the second one. You paste it here. We have our countries, we have the years, we have all the information that we need, so we can then play with the data, add it to other data sets. It just becomes so much more malleable for the things that we need. And then back to my presentation. And one thing that I forgot to say is that everybody that registered for this webinar will have the presentation in their emails, the presentation slides, and also once it's up on YouTube, we will share that link as well. So if you're feeling that it's a bit fast, don't worry, you can go back to it. Let me get back to my presentation. Perfect. And here I also hyperlinked if you want to test it at home and do the same. From this formula, we came to the second one and got our information. And because I said that the HTML formula is a bit limited, there are solutions. For example, the export XML. But because of time constraints, we are not going there today. But I linked a really cool tutorial in Zapier. So if you're interested in how to kind of go around these limitations, please give that a read. And then the second technique that we're going to cover is instant data scraper. Hopefully your new best friend. It has become something that I use a lot when I'm doing researcher. And instant data scraper is a plugin, right? It's a Chrome extension and you can just download it. Here I shared the link. And it helps you collect data in a more simple way. So let's go back to my other screen. All right. So we have the financial reports on a company, European Lithium. And if we were to, I don't know, copy and paste, that would take us forever, right? Like we have the years 2016 to 2023. It's just way too much time consuming. So how we could do it is that we can just use the extension, which is already downloaded. And then you will see that it already identified the table. If it did not identify the one that you're looking for, you could always click this button and say, try another table. But it did at the first try here. So this is amazing because then you just go and you download the CSV file. And then you can import the CSV file on Google Sheets, which I did over here, as you can see. Here. So this is imported directly from the CSV that was generated. But there is one problem. And the problem is that this data is messy. It's really not clean, right? Like you see that the years are just, everything's not great. And that's why we're going to go back to the presentation, because to cover a little bit of the concepts of tidy data. So let me stop my sharing and head back. Alrighty. So this is what we did together. This is what it generated. And now we're going to talk a little bit about Tolstoy, because messy data, it's great that you had it there, but at the same time, it needs to be clean so you can use it in your investigations, make sense of it. And that basically means organizing it in a way that each variable is in a column, each observation is in a row, and each cell is in a single measurement. And once you do that cleaning, then you can identify the patterns, just understand it better, and then you're ready to play around with the data. So this is our whole journey from the copy and paste that we thought was not really effective, to using instant data scraper, to having our data all ready to use, but at the same time not clean, to then actually aligning it in a clean way where we separated all the reports by year, type, date, and the link that is needed to analyze them. And then, of course, we would clean it for each one of the years, right? From 2016 until 2023. And Instant Data Scraper is my favorite, but it's not the only one on the market. Here I linked others that you can try and play with and see which one you adapt with better. And I also linked further resources. So there's great tutorials online. There was this one that I thought was really interesting for reporters that are interested in scraping TikTok. So just further reading recommendations. And my email here if you have any questions about this part or would like to reach out. And Keng, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Fernanda. So I think I can see that one attendee, Ronald Rodriguez, is raising his hand. Just to inform that we will have our Q&A sessions at the end of our presentation. We have about 15 minutes of Q&A, so we can keep all the questions there so that we can finish our presentation. Give me 1 minute, sharing my screen. All right. So my name is Keng. I am the data editor at the Pulitzer Center. Definitely not a AI character. I'm going to show you a real story that we just published working very closely with Mongabe, which is an environmental website. So this story is about the shark meat trade in Brazil. So we found that in our investigation found that right in Brazil, I'll just share with you the story. In Brazil, we found that the government actually procure or ordered over 5,400 metric tons of shark meat to be supplied to over 5,900 public institutions. Since year 2004 until 2024, right? And the recipients of this shark meat includes more than 1,000 daycares and preschools. So we know that, why this is a huge problem, because first, shark has been overfished, right? Their numbers has been dropping in the past few decades. So conservation of shark is a big effort. But the shark meat trade in Brazil is really a bad news for all the conservation of shark. And the other thing is, the Brazilians are being fed, shark meat that might contain high heavy metals. And we know that, these heavy metals can be harmful for young children, as well as vulnerable groups, for example, patients, pregnant women, and others. But so we found that, the governments at the federal government, the state government, as well as the municipal governments in Brazil has been procuring or ordering shark meat and supply to public institutions, right? So just this is what we found, and I'm going to show you how we are able to gather the data by using web scraping. So when we first started this investigation, we get a lot of hearsay, right? Hearsay from the ground telling that, the government supply shark meat to schools, to hospitals, right? But nobody has done any measurement of how widespread the problem is. So we do not know how much shark meat has been ordered. We do not know who are the recipients. We do not know who are the agencies that bought the shark meat, right? So in this case, we figure out that, okay, in Brazil, all the government procurements has to be done and has to be published on a transparency website, right? So by assessing these transparency websites where you're able to download government tender procurement documents, right? So these tender documents will be able to tell us what have the government bought or what have the government ordered for their institution, for schools, for hospitals, for the different public institutions in the country. So we first tried, assessing several different databases of these public tenders documents, and we found that it worked. In some tenders, we are able to find shark meat procurement, shark meat tender, and they will tell us, the documents tell us how much shark meat, how much it costs, who order it, and who are the recipients. But the problem is, there are 26 states in Brazil, plus 5,570 municipalities. And each municipality and each state government and federal government has their own procurement database, which means we have more than 5,600 websites that we need to collect the tender document if we want to, calculate the whole country. However, of course, we won't be able to do that. It is not humanly possible to scrape 5,600 websites unless, we have a large team doing that. So what we ended up doing is that we focus on the most popular states. And from our pre-reporting, we understand that there are 3 states that probably bought more shark meat than others. So we focus on these 6 states, and we told ourselves that, okay, if we are able to find enough number of shark meat tenders from these 6 states, then we are able to prove our hypothesis or to answer our investigation, right? The investigation question is, how widespread is the shark meat procurement? So we focus on these 6 states, and we are going to download the data, the tenders data, with web scrapers. So we have to develop, or we have to use some kind of scrapers to scrape the websites. So that brought us to the next questions. When we are scraping websites, just now, Fernanda showed you that you're able to use some ready-made tools like instant data scraper. But in our case, we are looking at a group of website called dynamic website. So we have to know that before we scrape a website, usually you have to know whether it's a static website or it's a dynamic website. So the differences here is that static website is like a newspaper, right? If you inspect the HTML source code, right, you're able to see your data in the HTML source code, okay? When you refresh it, the data doesn't change. It's still there. So usually if you find that you're able to see the data in a HTML source code, usually this is a static website, right? And you can scrape it easily with the tools that Fernanda has just recommended. So the example would be like Wikipedia articles, very simple blogs or a portfolio websites. However, most of the time, for example, in my case, right, we are dealing with dynamic websites. Dynamic websites means that, it is like your social media feed. Every time you refresh it, you get new data, you get different data, right? And if you check the HTML source code, you won't be able to see the data because the data is not baked into the HTML code. It is loaded by script, for example, JavaScript, right? So you don't have to, if you don't understand what is JavaScript, it's totally fine. You just have to know that when you can't use the normal ready-made scrapers to scrape a dynamic website. So for a dynamic website, you will have to design some, or you have to develop a customized scraper that is able to get the data that you want. Another way of recognizing dynamic website is that it requires some interactions before you can see the data. For example, if you go to an online database, you will have to put in your search criteria, right? What are the keywords, the date range and everything. Then you click search and you get data. And the data that you get today will be different from data tomorrow because the database will be updated, right? So these are also dynamic websites. And in this case, in our shark meat investigation, we are dealing with these kind of websites. So in this case, we have to develop our own custom scrapers. Also because we are dealing with 6 different online databases, and all of them look different. You can see here, right? They all have different ways of navigating, different ways of interacting with the databases. So we have to develop, in this case, our own custom web scrapers. And in this case, because we are not expert in writing or developing web scrapers, so we use LLM, which is the large language model, right? AI tool. For example, ChatGPT, Google, Gemini, Claude, right? There are several out there. So we use these LLMs to help us to develop our web scrapers. So the first thing is that for the static and dynamic website, sometimes you can't know it by just looking at it. You look at it, sometimes static websites actually at behind it, right? At the back end, it is actually using a script to load the data. So it's dynamic website. You won't be able to just look at it and know whether it's static or dynamic. But if you ask these questions to LLM, in this case, we use ChatGPT, the paid version, which is ChatGPT 5, the model 5. If you ask ChatGPT, here is a URL of the web page, I would like to scrape data. Can you tell me if the information is directly available or it is loaded with scripts? So this exact prompt, I will share the slides with you so you're able to copy the prompt, works. Okay, I have tested it before I do this presentation, right? So you can see that this is the website on the right hand of my slide. This is the database that we are navigating. You need to select your search criteria, okay, and put in your dates and click buscar, which is search in Portuguese, to get the data. All right, so once you know that this is a dynamic or a static website, the next step is you can actually ask LLM to help you to write a web scraper for the website, okay? So if it is a static website, that is very easy. You just have to provide, the 6 different items in your prompt, right? Which is, where's the web page? You give the URL, if you want to copy paste the whole HTML source code, you can do that. Sometimes if the LLM is like ChatGPT is able to visit the website, it is able to access the HTML source code. So you don't have to copy paste it. And of course, you have to tell LLM which data you want to scrape from the website and where you want to store the data. Do you want to keep it in a CSV file, for example? Whether there's pagination details, which means that if you go to the web page, do you need to click second page, third page, fourth page, right? Page by page to get all the data that you want. If you need to do that, you need to tell the LLM and where you will run the scraper, whether you run it from your computer or you can also choose to run it on the cloud, right? Later, Martynas is going to show us, there are tools that can be run on the cloud. So again, these are my prompt, right? My first prompt is to set up my computer. You need to install several libraries for Python. Python is a coding language, right? So you can ask LLM to help you to set up the environment, right, for Python. And later, you can give the prompt to say that I want to script this web page. It is a static web page, okay? So, and what do I want from the page? And then you're able to script it. So the example I use here is here. This is a list of press releases that we scrape to do an analysis of the narrative put out by the metals company about deep sea mining. So this is a static page, right? And I was able to use LLM to build, all right, I think it is okay. Yeah. So to build the script, the scraper to scrape that website. Right, but for a dynamic website, right, then it requires interaction, right? Because you need to click the search button and everything. So we need a scraper that imitates our browsing actions, okay? So we need to tell the scrapers where to click, where to select, where to fill in, and what data to extract, right? So in this case, we need to identify the HTML elements that we want the scraper to click to interact with, right? Is this button and that button. You cannot tell the web or the LLM to say that, okay, you click the blue button with the word search. Sometimes it is not accurate. So in this case, you need to identify the HTML elements. And each HTML element has a attributes. Attribute is like a label, right? So you need to find out the labels or the attributes of the HTML attributes, sorry, for the HTML elements, okay? And tell the LLM that, you should write me a code or write me a scraper that is able to click this button with these attributes or with this label. So on the left is, how you're able to right click on the web page to inspect the element and to find the attributes of the element, right? You right click, you click inspect, find the element, right click on the element and click on copy and copy element or copy selector or copy XPath, right? You'll be able to get the attributes of the elements. Okay, once you have done that, then you now can tell the LLM, I need you to write me or to develop a web scraper for me that can do this series of actions. For example, first step, go to the search page. Second step, fill in the search criteria in 9 drop-down menus, right? Select materials e equipamentos, right? Portuguese again, for this HTML element, right? You can say that I put in select, name. These are all attributes of a HTML element, okay? So that the web scraper that is written by LLM can perform the actions exactly like a human, right? Click, open it up, download, everything, right? So with this LLM, with this prompt, the LLM will give you a script which means a code that you are able to run from your computer to do the scraping. So it's a web scraper built by LLM based on the instructions that you give. So some tips, if you have multiple multi-layered databases, for example, on this website, you click on look at the tender, there are more details, you click on it, it opens up another window to show the details of the tender, right? So in this case, you might need to build multiple scrapers. The first scrapers is to get all the tender. The second scraper is to click on, go to each individual web page of the tender and then get the information. And the third one, will go to each, details and get the information from that details, right? So it depends on what kind of databases you are dealing with, right? So in our case, we actually wrote, multiple scrapers for one databases to collect all the information. And all the scrapers, we built them using ChatGPT. We basically give the prompts, run the scripts. If we run into problems, we copy paste the error message to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT, I received this error message. My scraper doesn't work. Can you troubleshoot and give me a solution? So after a few try and error, the scrapers are able to work, right? Cool. The last thing before I pass it to Martynas is that, there are some legal and ethical concerns when it comes to scraping. Okay. So as mentioned by Fernanda just now, when you want to get some data, first, please ask. Ask from the data owner. Okay. Unless you do not want a data owner to know about you trying to get the data, which is kind of tricky and it's also not very ethical. It's like you're asking data, you're getting data without asking for permission, right? So it's always request first before you scrape. And when you're doing your scraping, right, don't overload the web page by sending high volume of requests. Usually, if you are doing the dynamic scraping, basic web scrapers, you won't create this problem. But once you get very advanced, right, you can have multiple scrapers going to the same website, asking for information. And that means, the website has to deal with very high volume of visit, and that might bring down the website, right? You don't want to do that, right? And generally, scraping government public data is okay, because it's public data, right? So there shouldn't be any problem. But if you are scraping commercial websites, then it might be risky because they might have the terms of service to say that they block or they do not want any scraping, right? So you might want to check with your editors, check with your lawyers before you do the scraping. Or when you scrape the data, you use the data in your story, you don't say that you scrape the data. Don't disclose it. You can say that we manually copy the data, okay? And of course, if you want to access database and the database is private, do not hack into any databases, right? Do not use other person's credential to access data if you don't have the rights to access the database, okay? Lastly, consider privacy laws, right? If you are scraping personal information of patients, so consider the privacy laws in that country. Right. And before I end, just to share with you that we have a resources page on Pulitzer Center. And we just published one article yesterday about exactly what I just presented, but in much more detail and also with examples and prompts, which is how do you build web scrapers with AI, right? So the website, it's here. So if you go to Pulitzer Center and you find resources, you are able to see, all our different methodology articles, and different kind of resources for journalists. For example, we did a story about shark meat. We also published another, methodology article about how we did the investigations. So with that, I will pass it to Martynas. Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, let me share my screen. Do you see my screen?
We do.
Perfect. So hi everyone. Nice to be here. My name is Martynas Juravičius. I am R&D tech lead at Oxylabs, which is a market-leading web data collection platform. We provide a wide range of tools and resources for large-scale public data gathering. At Oxylabs, we have a dedicated pro bono initiative called Project for Beta. This project was created to connect our technologies with organizations who contribute to the public good. So in practice, what it means, we provide free access to Oxylabs expertise, products, resources, infrastructure to organizations that need public data to solve some critical research questions and missions. We already established a global network of academics and watchdog organizations, all of them using one or more Oxylabs products to create a positive impact. So talking about our product portfolio, what can we offer through the for beta? Mainly our products fall into two categories. There are proxies and there are scrapers. So proxy products are designed for cases where you already have or want to build your own scraper. And for example, you need to access a large amount of public data or that data may even restricted data. So you will definitely need to add proxies to your scraper. So we offer residential proxies, mobile proxies, ESP, and data center proxies. While data center ESP proxies are fast, reliable, but residential or mobile proxies are really good because the website cannot differ you from the real user and the scraping bot. The another category of products is scraping products. So these are accessed via API, and you can scrape any kind of domain and any kind of page with it. The main product in this category is a web scraper API. You simply provide the URL, and the API returns the HTML file. In some cases, it already returns you a structured data. We also offer Unblocking Browser, a tool that allows you to control a real browser, enabling actions such as navigation, clicking, and data entry. In addition, we have a data collection solutions for AI. Those mainly are high-speed, high-capacity solutions to gather a lot of video data from the internet. So I would like to talk a little bit more about the Web Scraper API, which is an all-in-one solution for data collection in large scale. So this product requires no knowledge of scraping, just enough engineering skills to integrate an API, for example, with the Python, yeah? So with it, you can access news, image searches, web searches, e-commerce websites, various blog posts, and any kind of other domains in large scale. So, and the Web Scraper API automates many tasks for you. So it provides already structured data for some websites, major search engines, major e-commerce websites. It automatically uses proxies and rotates those proxies so you can get large amounts of data. And it has cutting-edge anti-block solutions, captcha solving capabilities, a retrieve fail flow to ensure that the user who uses the product always gets the successful and good data. And I would like to present the feature of Web Scraper API, which is called Oxy Copilot. So to explain what problem does it solve, so when you gather the data, you always face two problems, yeah? So first problem, you want to get the data from web, which is usually a raw HTML file, but the HTML file is gibberish. It does not contain meaningful data. So the next problem is how to get that structured data from that HTML that it would be meaningful, and we call it the parsing or the parsing problem. So while Oxylabs Web Scraper API is perfect for solving the first problem, getting the raw data, it only has a few built-in parsers for certain search engines and e-commerce that I said before. But it doesn't have dedicated parsers for millions other websites in the web, and you cannot fully solve the second problem with it. And that's why we build the Oxy Copilot. So it's a tool that you write, it can write you custom parser. You provide a website, you describe in plain English what do you want, and it creates the dedicated parser for that domain, and you can use it with the web scraper API. So in a few steps, you kind of creating, without any engineering knowledge, a parser, and you can send it to web scraper API and get structured data for any kind of domain. And this is the example, a screenshot from the output. So for example, as you see, I just provided a website. I provided in the plain English that I want a title and the price. And the Oxy Copilot creates a parser, uses that parser to parse the scrape and parse the data. And as you see, I get the prices and the titles from some product listing page. Yeah, so now let me share a few examples of how our solutions have been used in investigative journalism organizations and tackle environmental challenges. So first, our partnership with Bellingcat. Bellingcat needed to capture and preserve large amounts of online evidence before platform could remove and restrict it, a crucial task for journalists. However, platform often blocks or limit IP addresses, making large-scale archiving very difficult. So to solve this problem, Bellingcat used Oxylabs residential proxies. They added our residential proxies to their solution, and in the result, they improved auto-archiver has now perceived over 150,000 pieces of online evidence for open source investigation. Another example is with Global Witness. Global Witness monitors COP conference attendees for fossil fuel lobbyists. So in COP29, over 52,000 people registered, representing 20,000 of organizations. Manually reviewing 20,000 organizations is kind of slow and very hard job. And relying only on AI information is kind of little bit risky, error prone, and it can hallucinate. So by using our web scraper API, Global Witness gathered reliable data, fed to their AI-assisted classification tool, and this approach helped them accurately identify fossil fuel lobbyists. So the stage for future open source investigations. And the full investigation and methodology are available on their website. And the last example is from our own country. So sometimes we not even provide the infrastructure and products, but we involve our team's expertise. So our Lithuanian Environmental Protection Department, EPD, needed to automate detection of environmental violations, such as illegal waste services, sale of banned fishing gear, hunting equipment, and etc. in advertised. Those are advertised online. So previously they monitored those websites, advertised websites manually. But in Oxylabs, we developed a custom web crawler which scans and classifies each ad and flagging suspicion ones. And after implementing this solution, they launched 15 investigations that led to confirmed violation, fines, and confiscations. And the most important thing, now they are moved from reactive monitoring to proactive enforcement. So yeah, and we are always on the lookout for new partners. So we, we would like to help. If you have any use case, we would be really glad to provide you infrastructure and products and our expertise. So yeah, you can contact us. Fernanda, do I have time for demo? 4 minutes?
Yeah, let's go.
Cool, nice. So Oxylabs AI Studio, totally new project for us. We launched it 2 months ago. And the main goal, allow any kind of engineer or not even an engineer to get public structured data from the web for their use cases. So let me share the website. Do you see the website? Yeah, perfect. So yeah, you can go here, even today, registered. It has a Google registration, and you will get 1,000 free credits to use. With 1,000 free credits, you kind of can do a simple project. So this AI Studio has 5 apps. Each of the app does some kind of crawling or scraping in the web. Each app has its own use case. Today I would like to present AI Scraper and Browser Agent. So with AI Scraper, you kind of can scrape any kind of web page and instantly get structurized data that you want. So it's like calling any kind of website like an API. This is our sandbox, Oxylabs. We use it for demos and test scrapers and parsers. Let's copy this URL. This is the game listing, video game listing page. So let's go past it here. And let's say in English, natural text prompt, what I would like to get. Get me title, price, and availability for each product. Yeah, and I can say get me a URL link for next listing page. So now it generates the schema because it's schema based. The natural prompt is used to suggest to build a schema, and you can visually see the schema. You can add additional fields, you can remove additional fields. So for products, we will get an array with title, prices, and availability, and we will get the separate field next listing URL. Perfect. Let's scrape and parse this. Yeah. So what happens now in the infrastructure, we spin up a scraper, and the scraper scrapes the HTML. Now we have the AI agent layer, which is responsible for data parsing, and it parses the data and returns in the JSON schema that we provided. So as you see, we have all the products, all the fields that we asked, and we also have the next page link, which is missing the domain, but very usual problem. You just add domain, and this is the path that you want. So if you like the results, then you can integrate it via code. So go to our integration code, and you can just copy this code, which is the same task that we already did. It filled with your API key, with the JSON schema. You can pass it to your Python script. You can run it, and you can get all the results, and you can save it in CSV and etc. So let's try with another website, Books to Scrape. It's another website which is meant for demos, for testing scrapers. We can even keep the same schema and test it here. So probably it should do the same, I think. So with the same JSON schema, with the same prompt, you can get data from any kind of domain. Yeah, same data, and you get the URL for the next page. So this is the AI scraper, very powerful tool, base for all our apps. And the next one is browser agent. Really cool thing, because it can mimic anything that any kind of user can do on the browser. So it can click, it can search, it can do intelligent things, because underneath there is a AI agent, which, you assign a task, it creates the flow, and that flow in the browser. So for example, let's say use the same example with the Oxylabs sandbox, which has the search bar here. I can ask for a browser to navigate to this website, use search bar, look for Mario games. And after you find the Mario games, return get me title and price. Let's generate the schema. Yeah, so we generated the schema. We can visualize it. Yeah, so each product, title, and the price. Okay, let's start browser agent. This process, it's a little bit longer. So I will explain what happens in our infrastructure while it does its job. So somewhere in our infrastructure, the instance, the real browser spins up, the real Chromium. It adds the residential proxies that it would seem like a real person. And it starts to do your assignment. So it searches for the search bar, enters something, presses, search, gets the results, and tries to structurize your data with the schema that you created. So yeah, as you see, all the products and all the products now mention the Mario. So it went to the search bar, searched for it, get the results, and parse the results. So yeah, that's it for the demo. Before I end, I have to add a disclaimer that those websites are for demo, and these tools are really powerful. So our clients, when they choose to use those tools, they are choosing their own targets, and then they are becoming responsible for the data and the content they are getting. We are just providing the tools. So yeah. So that's it from me. I think I hope you learned something. Go register here, start using it. It's for free. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Martynas and Keng. I will also link the link for registration to these amazing tools in the follow-up email with our audience. Keng and I have been answering some questions via writing, but maybe we can start with Ajibola's question to you, Keng. They're wondering what you think about scraping a commercial website of companies doing business with governments. Should the websites of those companies holding data that is supposed to be made public be treated as a private entity?
I think it depends on how the laws work in that country. So, for example, if in some countries where they have Freedom of Information Act or Rights to Information Act, right? They have the laws. Any business, yeah, that any companies that do business with government will be subjected under the FOI law, which means their data, whatever communication or the data, they are doing in their process of doing business with the government is subjected to the laws, which means that they are considered as public data. So in that case, I don't think there's any issues getting those data. Okay, but if you go to their website and you scrape all their data from their website, right, and maybe only a small part of it is related to the business that they do with the government, then in that case, it might be risky. Okay, so that's one. If in your countries there's no FOI, there's no RTI, then maybe those data will be considered as private commercial data. And in that case, you should read their terms of service. If you go to the website, you want to scrape, in all the established website, they should have a terms of service. And sometimes they make it very clear that, any scraping is not allowed. Yeah, so in that case, you should consult with your lawyer. So in some countries, in some cases, we still do the scraping, but in our story, we do not say that we scrape the website. We say that we access the website that is publicly available on their website, right? So or you can say that we copy the information from there and do our analysis. So that's the way to overcome it, because you are doing for public interest. So I think it justify, your why you need that data. Yeah.
Nice. And that's a great segue for our next question coming from Buena, asking what's the best practice regarding disclosure of tools used for a story? And maybe Martynas, you can start answering. Does Oxylabs like to be featured as a partner for journalists and stories? And then maybe you can add afterwards, Keng.
Sorry, can you clarify the question?
Oh, yeah. So when journalists are writing the story, what's the
Yeah.
best practice regarding disclosure of the tools that were used to scrape
Yeah.
the data
Yeah.
of the story?
So of course, since we are providing the products for free, we kind of like advertising that our products were used for good use. Of course, if those, projects or investigations are really sensitive, maybe both parties don't want to be mentioned anywhere. So yeah.
Anything further that you'd like to add, Keng?
Yeah, just on the disclosure of tools. So there are several considerations when you are disclosing the tools, right? One is the legal risk, right? If you tell, in your story that you use a scraper to scrape the website, then the company, if they think that you have violated, their rights, right? They might be able to sue you, right? So in that case, better don't disclose it, right? But for the transparency purpose, I always encourage journalists to disclose how they, their methodology, how they obtain and how they analyze information. So that because it is helpful for you to build your credibility and your trust, right? And also it is helpful for other journalists to learn from you, right? So for a lot of our projects that we supported, the stories that we supported, we published the methodology articles on our resources website, where you are able to read, how they do their investigations. Yeah, but just consider, the legal consequences if you disclose it.
Nice. I see that Wesley has their hand up, so I will allow you to come off mic and ask your question.
Yes, I'm confused about what to do using the Oxylabs tool after you generate the results. How do you run that code?
Yeah, so you press the integrate button and you get the code, and then you have to have some engineering skills. You have to have a Python in your computer installed. You save the code to the file and you run in that file and it gets you the results. We did the presentation a few weeks ago. I don't know how much are you familiar with the tool Cursor, which is a really cool coding agent, which allows any kind of person without even programming knowledge to do the coding. So we kind of did the experiment. Can we scrape entire website using AI Studio tools and just the cursor and just entering the prompts? Probably even the ChatGPT could, write you a code. So, for example, you are copy paste the code from AI Studio to the ChatGPT or a cursor, and you ask save the code in CSV, and you run the script and you get the CSV with all the data.
Okay, is there a application that you need to run the script in?
You just need to be in. You just have to be installed the Python on your computer.
Okay.
Can I respond to one question in the Q&A box, Fernanda?
Of course, go ahead.
It's about, can you scrape PDF elements if the document has a URL? I assume your question is about if there's a URL that directs you to a PDF, are you able to use your scraper to go into the PDF and extract a element from the PDF? So in this case, I would do two different tools, right? One is that I would download the PDF using the URL. I'll download the PDF, and then I will write a PDF parser. PDF parser means that a program that can understand PDF to extract the information that I want from the PDF. Yeah. And there are also ready-made tools out there that can help you to extract information from PDF, right? So we can save that for the next webinar.
Nice. There was also a question from Bryce asking if there were any databases that we would recommend using, or if we're mainly focusing on website scraping and public tenders, data work. And I think my answer for that is start scraping after you have a very clear idea of the story that you want to tell. I think that the story needs to be really thought through in your mind so you understand how that data serves your project, how it reveals something new, how you're going to work with the insights that you are going to get from that data. But have this really solid before starting to scrape, and that will just build your story better. There's also another question from Ilenia asking, would a government or company be able to tell from their end if their website has been scraped for a specific purpose? Which one of you two want to tackle this one?
I can take that. I think, Martynas, there are two questions about Oxylabs that you can answer later. So I'll help you to answer this one. The answer is yes. So if the website has a strong anti-scraping protection, for example, if you go to e-commerce website, because they have websites about their products and their prices, then they do not want their competitors to always know their prices, right? So they will put up anti-scraping protection. One of the ways is to detect your IP. IP is, when you visit the website, you know that, this IP has been coming. So if, say, you visit the website every 5 seconds for 5 hours, of course, the website will be able to easily recognize that this IP is from a bot, and we should kick the bot or block the bot. And that's where rotation IPs service from Oxylabs can help. So what they do is that they basically rotate your IPs, so you are not going to the website using the same IPs, right? And there are also different types of IPs, IPs that are used by bots. Those IPs can be easily recognized by these websites, and you will get blocked. But there are also residential IPs, which means that IPs that looks like you are from a residential area, right? So those IPs has a more likelihood to overcome the blocking by the website. Yeah, so if you go into that part, the advanced scraping, there are different strategies to help you scrape website to overcome all these protections against scraping. Yeah.
I see that there is a question about Oxylabs browser agent. Any risk of hallucination using the Oxylabs browser agent? Well, yeah, but since it's dedicated project, we are working constantly to get the most stable, best results. So the nature of AI and LLMs are that they tend to hallucinate, but there are many techniques how to reduce it to minimum. So I cannot say that it's 100% always not hallucinating, but using our tools, we are doing all those techniques that reduce it to the minimum.
Great. There is one more question coming from Ash about Oxylabs, asking if you offer on-prem solutions due to investigative security concerns.
Yeah, so he should contact us and we would discuss. We can suggest all kinds of products, and we can suggest the expertise to build some custom ones if needed for the certain purpose.
Great. I told Martynas that he would have his email poured by journalists by the end of the session, but I think we got to all of our questions. Thank you so much, Martynas and Keng. Thank you all for being here, and I'll be sure to send the resources we agreed. And yeah, follow up in our emails if you have any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fernanda. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Bye.